Welcome to our podcast. You're listening to Paradise by Ixon at www.ixonmusic.com. Hey, welcome to Why Complain When You Can Whine? Making sense of the senseless, 3 professional women attempting to make sense of toxic nonsense while drinking wine. I am Dr. Jody Lorman, Psych Dr. J, Jody, all of the above. I am a licensed clinical psychologist in the state of California. Therefore, I must say that anything and everything that we talk about is for entertainment and psychoeducational purposes only. There is no therapy, no therapeutic relationship given or implied. Tonight, since this is about wine, I found this. I have no idea what it's going to taste like. I just loved the label, and it is called the Wonderful Wine. It is clean wine made with organic grapes, sustainably farmed and vegan friendly. And it's a red, Cabernet. So, and my glass, my little tumbler says, maybe. It says, "Happy fall, y'all."
Love.
Heather, I'm going to tell you how this is, but go ahead.
Awesome. I'm Heather. I'm a licensed professional counselor in the state of Colorado, criminal justice mental health clinician, and domestic violence survivor. And I'm drinking, I don't know, it looks like it's called Show Me. It's got like all this craziness happening.
Ooh. M-I-E. I like that.
Yeah. It's just it's from South Africa. South Africa. Yeah, it's just like a mixed red. And my glass is just this cool red. Can you see the red with my light? Probably not.
That's pretty.
But that's my wine.
I like it.
Fancy. Go for it, Ashley.
I am Ashley Page, and I am DV and SA survivor, single mom, and founder of Loving Single. Tonight, I am drinking one of my favorite cheap wines, under $10, and Roscato, and it's like a bubbly sweet red deliciousness, and also bringing back one of my favorite wine glasses that just says Petty on it.
Yes, we need the Petty wine glass today.
I have to tell you guys, this, as far as cheap wine, this was on sale at Trader Joe's for $3.99, and it says that it's 89 points. So, but I also like that it says have a glass, have another.
Have another.
Tastes like magic hour. Being right and beating the high score. Okay. I just like the have a glass and have another. Don't mind if I do. Cheers, ladies.
Yes.
Cheers. Clink.
I love this wine.
It's not bad.
How is it? How is it?
Good.
For $3.99, this is like amazing. Really.
This is good.
I'll buy it again. You know, the one thing though that I really don't like about wine is that you can buy whatever year and it's amazing. And then the next vintage comes out and it's like, okay. And then another vintage comes out and it's really good. So it's like, you can't keep buying the same one and getting the same exact, which is good and bad. But I love when I really love a wine and I'll buy another bottle and it's a different vintage and it's like, because I am not a wine snob. I'm a snob, but I'm not a wine snob.
You are a snob. That's one of my favorite things about you.
Yeah. Hey, I would tell people at my work at the prison all the time, I would say, I'm not better than you because I'm a doctor. I'm just better than you. The doctor's like an added bonus there. That just raises
Oh
the
my
bar even
God.
higher.
Oh my gosh. So, we October is Domestic Violence Month, and I think that
Hence
we're
the
all
purples.
we're all utilizing purple. Heather's is a beautiful shade of royal purpley indigo.
Drink enough and it'll be purple. Drink enough, it'll be purple.
Enough wine and it'll be a beautiful purple.
Yep.
But I think that we can't go without acknowledging Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So, were you going to say something, Jody?
No, I was going to say, is there ironically, Domestic Violence Awareness Month is the same month as Breast Cancer Awareness Month?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I've always thought that too. So.
Yeah, I wonder why they picked October.
Have you guys read what happened recently? Our last episode was about what was happening in Iran. And did you see what happened yesterday and today with the rock climber in Seoul, Korea?
Mm-hmm.
I did not.
You did not? Had Ashley?
I'm very upset about it.
Do you want to?
So I don't have her name in front of me, so I'm not going to try and pronounce it, but she is a world-class rock climber, and they were in where was it? North
Seoul, I believe it was Seoul, South
Seoul, Korea. They went to Seoul, Korea for, was it the World Championships? And she did not wear her hijab when she did her final climb, and now she's missing.
They took her cell phone, they took her passport, and on Instagram is they made the session basically saying that her not wearing her hijab was a wardrobe malfunction. She didn't know she was going to be climbing right then. It was kind of a last minute thing, and they weren't able to put it on, and that's why she did it, as opposed to solidarity with everything that is going on. The last I heard, they arrested her brother who lives in Iran. They arrested him, and that's what they do. They hold family hostage to make sure like that she comes home, and influencers, athletes, things like that, people with a platform, they will hold the family hostage to get the person to say whatever it is that they want them to say. And so now they believe that she's being taken to, I cannot remember what prison, but there was just a massacre there a couple of days ago at that prison. Because I wondered, I'm glad I watched the video recently, because I wondered why she would why not just go get amnesty somewhere? But they take the family members, which prevents you from going and getting amnesty, because if you go and get amnesty, what are they going to do to your family member or members? Can't hear you.
It's so crazy because although this is about Iran and women's rights, it does tie directly into what happens with domestic violence. And I'm not trying to, take that attention away from her. But it does tie into it so much, as far as because it's tragic that the amount of women and children that are going missing and dying in Iran right now, simply for standing up, speaking out, and fighting for their freedom is disgusting and despicable. And the only reason I say that is it's the way it ties in, is because how many of us don't leave? Like, how many times did I get trapped into staying because he threatened to do something to one of my family members, or would send me a location of where my parents were, or and it abuse, at the end of the day, abuse is abuse, and all abusers, they all operate the same way on larger and smaller scales. but with what's going on in Iran, a lot of us can really learn so much about domestic violence on a gigantic scale. So when people say, why don't they leave? Something as ignorant as that, why didn't she get amnesty? Well, of course she didn't. Her family.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or for a woman in domestic violence, my kid.
Yeah.
Or my parents. Like,
I hear all the time, and we talked about this on the other episode, that, domestic violence can happen to men too. Women can be abusers as well. In the United States, there are 2 domestic violence shelters for men. One is in California, in my area, actually, is what I was told, but they won't tell you where. But it's really difficult because men are not going to always admit that they're being abused. I mean, men are supposed to be, and quite often are, the more powerful gender, the more powerful sex, whatever word you want to use. So they should be able to overpower a woman. How are you getting abused? But sadly, women, what I've heard about women abusers are they use things like frying pans. Like men will use their fists and anything and weapons, but women use whatever is available to beat. And what guy wants to say anything about being abused?
Yeah, and they'll destroy the house, and I mean, yeah, it's
And the LGBTQ community has a lot of domestic violence as well. So we mainly are focusing on women, but we understand that it is not specific to women. Abuse is abuse, whatever sex, gender, whatever you want to call it, the person is.
I think the latest stats are 1 in 4 men, 1 in 3 women, right?
1 in 4 men.
1 in 4 men. And
Oh,
1 in
wow.
3 women.
Wow.
I didn't know the rates for men were that high.
I didn't either. I did not. But when I was doing all of my domestic violence, I used to assess for domestic violence. And
double check it.
it was, and you rarely talked about men, but when they did, this was like 2007, 2005, 6, and 7. And I think sadly, there was less LGBTQ coming out and saying they were abused. You heard about it, but they weren't seeking help because of so many reasons. And I think now you're hearing more, they're more apt. I don't know, this is just my thought process, is they're more apt to come out and say something than they were 10 or 15 years ago. But I have not looked up the research on that. So don't yell at me. I'm not stating that as fact.
1 in 3 women, 1 in 4 men
Wow.
will experience rape, physical violence, and/or stalking by an intimate partner in their lifetime.
I can see women stalking men. I've seen.
I know some women stalkers.
I know some female stalkers too.
Yeah.
And just some,
We all do.
I do know, and the crazy thing is that, and a lot of the women that I know of, and I'm thinking off the top of my head, are what I refer to as covert abusers. And, that they're, and you can tell in their response to actual domestic violence, when they witness or see something to do with real domestic violence, that their first place they go to is victim blaming, and they like to blame the victim. And I'll be honest, the female abusers that I've seen, they're terrifying.
Yeah. Women use words. Women are ruthless in the, how do I put this? Well, because I've seen it on men too, but they will say shit about your kids, women. That's like, what, excuse me? Call you bad parent. They're going to do the things like men are going to be violent. I see women as being the ones that will call child services on you just because and make up a false report just so that they can like ruin your life. I mean, men
Yeah.
will do that too, but women are.
Yeah, I see a lot of crossover in the types for sure. I have female clients right now that are domestic violence offenders that used everything from their fists to knives to weapons. And I have, you know, male DV offenders as clients who, you know, have done the same. So I think there's a lot of crossover between tactics. I think abuse.
Well, look at, what is it, Carrie Underwood? That song that she's going to take a baseball bat to his tires and slash his car so that he won't ever cheat again.
Right.
I listened to that and it's like glorifying. I get it. It's a song. I'm not a prude. I like the song, but it's one of those that it's like, wow, nobody really thinks twice about, she made this song about just completely vandalizing, tearing up, shredding the car because he cheated. But yet if a guy did that, I don't know that that song would be a hit. I think
double standards out there, that's for sure. Yeah.
I think that would be like, need to call the police on what is this artist, look at back at his record, his life, his whatever.
Right. No one would find that very tasteful.
Mhm.
I like the song. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Well,
no
so
offense, Carrie
Heather,
Underwood.
so let's make it a little bit personal. Because you know, let's bring it home a little bit.
Mhm.
So today is kind of a significant day for you. May we talk about it? Because this is, you know, so many victims. We know the stats, some women don't, some people don't, that it's a woman or a survivor victim tries to leave on average 7 times before they either finally escape or they die. And but for those of us who get away, you know, there's either justice or there's injustice. So will you, as a DV survivor, will you share a little bit about your story?
Sure. So I was with a guy who I had known since we were teenagers. And when we were teenagers, we dated very briefly, and we got in a lot of trouble together because we were both really rebellious and whatnot. And even back then, he was like a big ball of red flags. Like he cheated on me. He did a lot of drugs. He was not a stable human in general. He and I got in a lot of our own trouble. I took a different path in life than he did. I went back to college. I went to grad school, got my life together. He stayed on his criminal path of destruction forever. He spent a lot of his life in and out of jail and prison. And then in 2018, I was getting divorced from my ex-husband. And 3 weeks after my ex-husband and his daughter moved out, I got a Facebook message from the same guy that I had dated 18 years prior. And it was sort of like this really fast kind of like, gosh, I've been looking for you for so long. The first message he sent to me on Facebook was, "Are you my Heather?" You know?
Yep.
It was like immediately owned me, right? Like in his language. And I was in a pretty vulnerable place. I mean, I'd been married, we'd been together for 9 years. And even though the divorce was like totally my plan, like it was still a pretty vulnerable place for me to be in, trying to talk to somebody from my past in the middle of my divorce, right? Like it was just not good timing, but it was perfect timing on his end. And same cycle started to happen. There was cheating right off the bat. He was using drugs again, and he had lied to me about a lot of things. I caught him in a bunch of lies. I was seeing right through his shit. I left in August of 2018. He hoovered me back in September. We broke up like months later, and then and then like the DV stuff started happening, like the real like psychological mind fucking started happening. And he was still cheating with whoever he wanted to, and he was getting really scary, and he was starting to accuse me of cheating. He was starting to accuse me of like really ridiculous things that weren't happening. I couldn't like go anywhere without, you know, him wanting me to ping my location or take pictures of where I was and who I was with and all that. So it started getting really like icky, and I was getting way in too deep. And so, and then it got physically violent by the end. And by the end, I mean, he was such a messed up person as far as the drugs were and alcohol were concerned, that he was literally putting my life in danger every single day. He tried to steer me off the highway. He put a bullet through my wall. He physically assaults me. And then down the road, he ends up finally in prison, right? So today's kind of like, that is like the really short, non-complicated story of my history with him. But he was not a healthy person, and he was very, very abusive. At the beginning, people were like, I even minimized it a lot. Like, well, he didn't break any bones. I didn't end up in the fucking hospital. So am I really like, am I that much of a victim? Is victim on a spectrum? Like, am I just like, I'm not. And so there was a lot of my own kind of wondering whether or not like what he was doing to me qualified as domestic violence, because so much of it was not physical in the beginning. It was all psychological. And I had no idea. Like, I knew what gaslighting was, but I knew like some of these other terms that are super popular now in like the narcissistic abuse recovery world, like love bombing and things like that. Some of that stuff I didn't really have a full grasp of. I kind of knew the idea, but I really didn't know what it felt like until this relationship with this person. And I was like, holy shit, what just happened to me? So like psychologically, I'm super traumatized. Physically, I'm minimizing it because I'm like, well, I'm not bleeding to death. He didn't actually shoot me. He didn't actually draw blood. He didn't break my neck. He didn't slam my head against the floor, but he acted like he was going to. So is that the same level? Like, do I have the right to be included in this survivor world, right? So there's I didn't really know. And so at first there was this hope that he would come back. Even after he went to jail the first time, I was like, I wanted him to just stop and just be nice and come back, and we would be fine. And if he just got clean, everything would be fine, right? Like, he would stop if he was sober.
If they would just stop doing whatever it is that they are doing that makes them who they are, they would be
right.
better.
Right. So I went through all of that. And then like at some point I got fucking mad. I got so mad, and I got so fucking mad that it turned my entire life around. So I really thank anger for pulling me out of feeling just really brainwashed by this guy. And just, there was this voice in my head that said, if you don't start standing up for yourself now, if you don't start, he's going to kill you. Like, he is going to, eventually you're going to die. So there's this voice that was like, almost like literally hallucinating voice, like in my soul, that was like, this is not your life. This isn't it. Get the fuck up. You got this, like, turn it around. And I just started getting really mad. And I had a lot of victim advocates too. And I got to give a shout out to them. I had some really good victim advocates, and I had some just victim advocates, but I had some really I didn't have a lot of people by the end, because he did the whole isolation thing. I didn't have a lot of people, but I started accumulating them back. And then I had these victim advocates that were like keeping me upright and reminding me that I wasn't losing my mind. And I got into therapy. That really helps. Always do that. And I eventually, after like 20 fucking some odd court hearings, put his ass in prison. So today was his mandatory release date from the Department of Corrections. However, he had 2 domestic violence protection order violation convictions out of a municipal court over here that he was sentenced to a year on, concurrent to his Department of Corrections sentence. So I found out today that he is now back in county jail and not released on parole quite yet. So I'm feeling really good about that. So that's my long story short-ish.
You know, one thing that you had said that I think is really important, mental and emotional abuse, psychological abuse is domestic violence. And so many people think, just like you said, well, he didn't hit me, or he didn't break a bone, or, you know, he hit the cabinet, or he meant to, and I was in the way. It was my fault. Have you ever seen the Netflix show called Made?
Made. That show was so triggering when it
Yeah.
came out, because he did punch a hole. There's a patched up hole in my bedroom. He punched a hole through the wall next to my head the night after he tried to steer me off the highway in the Jeep. Yeah.
For those who haven't watched it, it takes place in Washington, and her husband, they have a little girl. Yeah. Little girl. Yeah. And he is abusive. He's verbally abusive. He hasn't been physically abusive yet, but he has thrown things at her head. He has punched walls. He has taken the money, financial abuse, all of that. So when she left, she didn't feel that she was worthy of staying in a domestic violence shelter. And she didn't think when she went to social services that she was worthy of getting domestic violence help. And what I really liked was that they said mental and emotional and psychological abuse is domestic violence.
Yep.
I know too many people, sadly, that they didn't get hit, but they had physical and emotional and psychological abuse and tried to unalive themselves because of it a few times. So that's the sad thing, is people will say, but again, well, he only broke my wrist. He didn't, you know, it's going to heal, or it's a sprain, not a break, or I didn't have to have surgery. No abuse is acceptable at all.
No, well, and what a lot of people don't realize is, if we look at the different types of tortures that are used in different countries, a lot of them, they don't lay a finger on you, and they don't have to literally drive you insane and to drive you to a psychotic break, and to torment you. And it, in the beginning, because I talked to so many women who are like, well, he would never hit me. But the thing is that, like, I've had black eyes from my ex, busted lips. He nearly crushed my trachea. He almost killed me on several occasions. The man hired someone to kill me, threw me down flights of stairs, broke my bones. And I'll tell you what, that there was nothing for as severe as that physical pain was, that the physical pain eventually went away. The emotional pain and the mental trauma, I still experience that shit today. And there is, even if they don't lay a finger on you, if you are fearful of your life and you feel like your life isn't your own, I used to literally say, like, I live in a prison. I am captive to my ex. I have no life. He's going to own me forever. I'm not a human being. I'm an inanimate object. I have no choice. I have no say. He determines who my friends are. He determines what I wear. He determines where I go. He determines my thoughts. A lot of women don't understand that is or just victims in general, because children, if they're in the home, they're victims of domestic violence too. A lot of people don't understand that.
And if
that they
happens,
don't even realize.
if fighting is going on in front of the kids, if that stuff is happening literally in front of the kids, that can be child abuse, and you can
It is.
report it. Yep.
It is because when my ex broke into my home in 2020 and my daughter didn't even witness it with her eyes. She just heard, and she thought that he had killed me, and that they charged him with child abuse because of the emotional and mental trauma that she experienced during that incident. He got slapped with child abuse. And people don't understand that she's a victim of domestic violence as well.
Yep.
And
Absolutely.
so many people are probably, well, I hope so many people are listening, but so many people are listening to this probably going, but Ashley, Heather, I mean, come on, you guys stayed. I mean, you could have left at any time. And if you have never been in the situation, you have no idea. No idea. It is not that simple.
I remember the third time I tried to get away. Well, I didn't like, so the first time I left, right? And then he sucked me back in. The second time, because there were three, like the second time he left me, and I was like, what the hell just happened? And it was very much like a narcissistic discard. Well, that's exactly what it was. Call it like it is. And I remember how fucking hard that was for me, because it was like, yes, this is a blessing, and he's been abusing you and cheating on you, and he's called you a cunt and a bitch in front of your family. Like, fuck this guy. And I remember like I had this apartment that had these 2 sliding glass door mirrors for closets, and I took like dry erase markers and I wrote all of the horrible fucking shit he did to me, so that every day I would wake up and be reminded of that, because I very much knew that I wasn't going to be done when he came back the next time, that I was going to take him back in my soul. Even though up here I was trying so hard to convince the rest of me, I knew that if he came back, I would take him back, that I wasn't done. My friends knew it. It was horrible. And I was trying to like get out.
Also, Heather, they don't just come back swinging. They come back with the honeymoon period. They come back with the, I am so sorry. I was drinking. I won't drink again. All of that. So they don't come back with, they start the threats sometimes right away. Like, a lot of women that go to domestic violence shelters are found by their abusers at the shelter, because they will call, or their abusers will call their number, they'll call their abuser, and their abuser will do one of 2 things. I have your kids or your family or your whatever, so you better tell me where you are. Or I am so sorry, I will never do this again. And then when you tell them where you are and they come and get you, once you're in the car, it can start right up. They'll grab you by the hair and you now.
Third option, this is what he used to do on me. And if anyone suffers with codependency, this is the one that always got me. I need you. I need your help. And he would come back with some pity party of, how this person did something to him. And he had like a black eye when he came back and said he did it to himself.
Yeah.
But I was like, what the and like, just like would come back pitiful and broken, which for me was like, oh, a project, someone to fix.
And what about, I will kill myself?
Oh my God, he threatened suicide by cop all the time. Yeah, he had guns and he's like, I'm going to go commit suicide by cop. I'm going to go out here and find some. Yeah.
So one way or another, I am going to permanently fuck you up mentally, emotionally. And it does. It messes with our brain, our amygdala, our prefrontal cortex, our hippocampus, all of that. CPTSD, it changes the way that you think, the way that you feel, your interpersonal relationships, your relationship with whatever faith you thought you had, with whatever worldview you thought you had, because it's not just snap out of it. Come on, open your eyes. It's not that. Our brains start to, unfortunately, be, for lack of a better word, programmed. What is it? Manchurian Candidate? Have you ever seen The Manchurian Candidate? It's all about what they did in, I want to say it's older than I am, so I do remember it, but I don't remember it. But it's back in either, people are going to be like yelling at me right now, Korean War or Vietnam or something, or even World War II, where they completely brainwashed the POWs. They just didn't lay a hand on them, but they brainwashed them into thinking that each other was the enemy, not the people that were the enemy. And if you haven't seen it, watch it, because it shows how easily, honestly, I mean, it's not easy, but easily someone can be completely brainwashed, even if they are trying not to.
Well, and let's not forget when there's children involved. I mean, for fuck's sake. You know, the hardest thing about having a child with your abuser is that even when you leave, you're attached to your abuser forever. And you know, I can't tell you how many times that my ex would hoover me in, just for the simple fact that I was terrified that he was like, I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that my ex, it's just when he decides to kill me. And that's really fucked up to say, but like, I 100% believe him. There was never not a day that that he told me, I'm going to kill you. And I was like, shut up. You're not going to. I was like, I know. You know, like, I remember him telling me, you have until her 18th birthday. That's how long you have to live. And then she won't need you anymore and you're dead. And I looked him in the eyes. I was like, I know. You know, and so like, there's so many times that with our children that we just have this understanding that, to a degree, no matter how many times people are like, why don't you leave? Why don't you just run away? Like, are you fucking crazy? Like,
And don't expect a lot of help from the justice system in that department either, or the family courts for that matter. In that department, they're not going to help you.
They protect the rights of the father. I mean, that's the reason that I had the entire incident this weekend in the first place with what happened with my daughter's dad, is because the fucking courts mandated that there be open communication with her father, even though they have documented proof he's shot people, that he's a convicted drug addict and drug dealer, and that he has like all kinds of assault, he's killed people, all kinds of things. And still, it is in the best interest that communication be maintained with the father. Well, what about the best interest of the fucking child? What about the best interest of my daughter, who doesn't want to talk to him and doesn't want to have communication with him? Well, I'm sorry, Miss Fowler, but we just don't feel that it's right to take away the rights of the father. So we're mandating communication, and if you limit communication or stop communication, you'll be found in contempt of court. And then this weekend happens and my daughter's traumatized.
Yep.
And now I'm guilty in the eyes of people because I'm a child abuser, but so many parents have their hands tied behind their back and tape placed on their mouths, and we're supposed to just stand by and watch our abusers do to our children what they've done to us.
Really quick before people yell at me, the plot centers on Korean War veteran Raymond Shaw, who is brainwashed by the communists, to civilian life where he becomes an unwitting assassin. Gotta say that so that people aren't like screaming that I did this wrong. So I have to clarify that. It's all about being brainwashed by the Koreans or Soviets or something like that. But going back to with the children, because what they do, not only to the children, but they're doing it to the children to fuck with you.
Totally.
They're doing it to the children, not because they give a shit about the children, because sadly they don't.
I don't give a shit about anybody.
They become the parent that, for example, your mom is not letting me see you, and I'm going to paraphrase or some, or I don't even freaking know the word. But I'm never gonna see you again. And if something happens to me, just know it's because your mom never let me see you. She's the
Yep.
one. And then if God forbid something happens to them on their own, or they get in an accident, then they're hoping, to be honest, that your child will now hate you because you kept them from seeing the parent. So for the rest of their life, your life, they will be angry at you because you never let them see mom or dad or whatever. And they don't give a shit about the kid. I'm sorry, but they don't. Because if they did, they wouldn't fucking traumatize them like that. But they're doing it so that they will hate you and ruin the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's a really hard thing as a parent to know what is best, to do what is best for your child, to know what is best for your child, to know that this is their parent. However, this parent is also very dangerous. And they know that. And the parent knows that.
Yeah, there's like, it's the element of fucking victim blaming that drives me crazy about society's response to mothers who are just trying to protect their children. But it's like, damn, well, you shouldn't have chosen to have a baby with him then, you know what I mean? And then there's the victim blaming of people who don't have children, but maybe work in criminal justice and are really educated in this kind of stuff and still fall victim to really abusive, awful people. And then we're left with imposter syndrome. Like, really, do we really know what the fuck we're doing as therapists? Or maybe we don't. Maybe why didn't we fucking see this coming? And there's the fucking victim blaming of, you should have fucking known better then. Really infuriates me. And I had to deal with it with a couple of law enforcement officers throughout my journey in the court system, trying to get the justice that was deserved, and still never really got it, but got it at least enough where felt like it was like I got my time, some of my time back that was spent. But it was like, there's every once in a while there was a police officer, like there was one guy that said to me, one police officer, and I went to the police department to report a protection order violation, who, I don't remember what I had said about domestic violence or whatever, and he said, yeah, well, it goes both ways sometimes. And like, it was like an accusatory statement.
Oh my God.
I almost lost my shit. Like, I really almost lost my shit on the guy. So there are just the ignorance, and I think it's ignorance, and I think it's like, it's really, if you don't know, you don't fucking know. If you've never been through it, like, you just don't, you don't understand why it's not our fault.
Ashley, you were saying that the women who pretend to be abusers, and pretend to be abused. I'm going to say pretend to be abused, because if you are abused and you see someone going through it, you know, it's triggering.
Mhm.
If you've been abused mentally, emotionally, physically, any abuse, you know. And you know what's real and what is not. And you know when somebody is going through it or not. And you know when someone is acting or not. And to call out a victim when you yourself are supposedly a victim.
Yep.
No.
Yep.
No.
There's nothing that infuriates me more. So for example, just to give like a little bit of like insight for those who are listening. There, a couple of years ago, I had a friend who actually had dated him, and he was one of the only like men that I dated that was just extraordinary, because I've seemed to just attract I've just always been in relationships with abusers, but this man in particular was one of the most extraordinary men I've ever met. And because of my trauma, I naturally was like, get away from me. But anyways, I stayed, you know, in contact with him, and he started dating this woman who was so toxic. And he was gonna leave her, and so I think she knew, and so anyways, she pretended to be pregnant and told him that she was pregnant, and in order to keep him. And so he's just such a stand-up guy that he was like, okay, I mean, okay, I'm here, I'm going to be responsible. And about, I would say 8 weeks later, she said she had a miscarriage. Now, I've had several miscarriages, and I've had a stillbirth. And she was telling me about her experience in the ER during her miscarriage. Now, if I'd never had a miscarriage before, when I initially found out, I was like, oh my God, like, I'm so sorry. I sat with her, I cried with her. And then she started telling me details about it. And I said, wait a second. Like,
Doesn't matter.
that doesn't, that's, they can't know those things. They can't look at you and say, oh, you've had 7 miscarriages before this. They can't do that. And oh, you miscarried at this time, and you had when you're like 11 weeks pregnant, and this and that and the other thing. And just from my experience, because I had been there, I was broken with her at first, and then the details that she started telling me, I was like, now I didn't blame her, I didn't get angry at her, but I knew that based on my personal experience, that what she was doing was she was creating a narrative in order to keep this man and to essentially manipulate him into getting him to stay with her. So when I look at other women who are claiming to be abuse victims, and then when they see a real victim going through something, and they have the audacity to blame the victim and say she's making this up, she's doing this, when they're seeing the woman in pain, and they're seeing these real life situations, especially involving children. I'm like, wait, if you're going to say that, you've never really gone through domestic violence, because this happens for everyone. Or how could you say that you've gone through abuse and you see something like this, or you hear a story like this, and you have the audacity to blame the victim? It's just very clear and very evident that some people almost use the title of domestic violence survivor or victim because they think it's a badge of fucking honor, and they want to be part of the fucking club because they feel left out, and they want to use it as a notoriety. That, listen, we're part of a club that we don't want to fucking be a part of. Like,
When I think about like your daughter crying, it takes me back to just when my son first realized that my ex lied to him, and he was crying, and he was like, he lied to me, mommy. And it broke my heart. So seeing a child, I don't go, oh, that's staged. Oh, that's not real. It's like my immediate thought goes back to what happened, which was not nearly as traumatic, but it was still traumatic. It goes back to that. That's what, when you've been a victim of any kind. I had somebody who is a grad student and works with narcissists. They said to me, narcissists, they told me they don't abuse their partners. They're not abusive. Okay, because they tell you that they don't abuse. Let's go with that. That's fine. And starts blaming, you're not being abused. You're not being abused. And you can't use your personal experience to say that that's what they do. It's like, if you've never been through it, be happy, be glad, be grateful. I know so many people who I thought I would never be in a situation like that. And mine was not. Mine was more emotional and psychological. It started to get to the physical, but I left before when it started with that. But I always thought, if I was to never, I'm a doctor.
Right.
Never gonna happen. It does.
Right.
And
I
when
got
it
this.
does,
Right.
you know, when other people are going, you know what's real.
Yeah.
And you do not, it is a huge, I don't even want to say pet peeve, it pisses me off to victim blame. I cannot handle victim blame or victim shaming. Like, you know, Ashley, Heather, you guys put yourself in that situation. You're intelligent women. You should know better. So, you know, it's all
I
on
was
you.
just talking to my friend about that this last weekend, because her ex-husband was a piece of shit, and it was a domestic violence situation as well. And she's like, I still don't understand it. I'm a smart person. How do we get it? How do smart women? And it was like I constantly had to redirect that blame. Like, it's not on you. It's not on me. It's not on us. Yeah, we're smart and intelligent. That's why they liked us. Why they went after us.
That's
That doesn't
almost
mean
a
we
reason
are
why
immune.
we don't say anything.
Yeah.
Because, come on, Heather, you're a therapist. You really
Right.
put yourself into that situation? Ashley,
Right.
you're an intelligent woman. You're a strong woman. Come on. You want me to believe that you let someone do that? Come
Right.
on.
Well, I mean, that's the thing I always tell people is, do you think that our abusers showed up and said, hey, baby, I'm going to fucking ruin your life. I'm going to beat you between an inch of life and death. I'm going to like torment you and terrorize you to the point where you can't even go out in public for fear that I'm going to be walking behind you. No, they showed up as fucking Prince Charming. They showed up mirroring everything we've ever wanted. One man I dated, when I asked him, I said, why did you do this? And he said, because that's how you make women fall in love with you.
Yeah.
I said, I know what women want. And he goes, it was really easy, actually, because y'all just want a few things. You want to be told that you're beautiful. You want romance, and you want to be the apple of my eye. It's actually really easy to convince a woman to fall in love with you. And I just was like, one, I appreciate your honesty, and two, I want to just rip your hair out.
That's horrifying.
Because women's hearts are, I mean, there's no honor in a woman's heart, and that's the thing, is like, people don't realize. The other thing that they don't realize either is like, they're like, well, just fucking leave. More times than not, somehow our entire life becomes entangled into theirs. And so we're just trying to figure out, okay, how do I minimize the damage of leaving? Like, how do I get out of this in the like cleanest way possible? How do I minimize the damage? How do I, because somehow his friends are my friends and he knows everything about me, and now we have a shared bank account and we live in the same place, and oh Jesus, like, he's already warned me he's going to ruin my life, that he's going to, like, people don't understand the things that are told to you in private, like, I'm going to ruin your life. I'm going to ruin your reputation. I'm going to show up at your job. I'm going to get you fired. Like, I'm going to clear the bank account. I'm going to change all the fucking passwords. I have these dirty pictures of you that I'm going to show to everyone. I know this about your past. I know this and this and this and this. It's constant, like, blackmail is what it feels like.
Yeah.
And so they beat you into submission, and finally you just have no voice. And you're like, okay, like, just stop. Anything you want, just please stop.
Yeah.
Anything you want, just please stop.
Just to keep the peace.
That's where I got.
Yeah.
Keep the peace. Just please stop.
My ex, I stayed because he was at that point in time the father figure to my son. And when I left him once, and my son was 10 and started doing very poorly in school. He was getting red cards, which is behavioral cards. He was acting out, and I thought, you know what? I can't do this to my son. He loves him. So the best thing is to just go back. And what, I was with him 10 years. That was 4 years into it. He was a father figure to my son from the age of 6 to 16. So at 12, 10, sorry, I think back to if I would have left 6 years ago, it probably would have been less harmful. But you think you're doing the right thing as well. I mean, you're literally, he was the father figure to my son. He wasn't the father, but the father figure. So when it is the actual parent, it's like, there's also that thing of, I don't want to separate my child, because your child may love that parent at that point as well.
Oh, they do.
Yeah.
They do, because most of the time we as parents are minimizing what the child sees.
We're hiding it. Yeah.
We don't want to. The thing that I struggled with the most was, oh, Jesus Christ, if I say anything about her dad to her, one, what kind of emotional damage am I doing? And if I try and educate her, then all that I'm going to do is, and I don't allow her to see her dad and talk to her dad. When she's 13, between the ages of 13 and 16, I'm going to either push her into his arms, or I'm going to put her into the arms of another man who is an abuser. And she's going to end up just like me. And so we literally feel like, and even before I had my daughter, there's nothing that I can do as right. It's lose-lose situation. I fucking lost either way. It's just about minimizing damage at this point.
Yeah.
Like, which wrong choice do you want, Ashley? Which one's worse?
Right.
It is not. And I truly, truly, truly hope that the vast majority of people do not ever have to go through this. I really hope that. I would love for people to be like, that's never happened to me. And sincerely, it hasn't. Not minimizing, not anything. Because again, I never thought that I would. And I mean, the only thing I can be grateful of is I met you, two ladies. I was gonna say three. Didn't have that much. I met you two ladies. And we're doing this, and it has taught me to be even more compassionate and empathic. Not that I wasn't already, but now I understand. But if you never go through it, I legit hope for that for everybody. I legit hope that people are like, yeah, I can't relate to that. That's awesome. That is awesome. If you legit cannot relate to that. I mean, I'm a widow. My husband was my best friend, my soulmate, my partner, my everything. And I went a 180, a 180 with my ex. And if you would have told me before I met my ex that about that, I would have been like, no, nobody does. That's like a small percentage. Well, once you're in it, you see it. Sadly, it's not a small percentage either. Like you said, 1 in 3. That's not a small percentage.
Yeah. And I mean, so many of us stay because it's safer. And then some of us, like me, stay or take back because we have like this delusional belief that they're capable of change, or that if something external about them changes, like their substance use or whatever, then everything will be okay. When there is something fundamentally wrong with a person's character if they are able to do what they have done to victims. So it is not.
Heather, remember, they showed you, like Ashley said, they don't blast their violence and their NPD and their whatever. They showed you. They showed you something good. So we're not just grasping for something we've never seen before.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
We saw it. And you did that
like,
before.
There's a human in there. I saw it once or twice or 3 times. I want that back. So yeah, there's that. And then there's, but placing blame on victims is wrong. And then not holding perpetrators accountable is equally as wrong and is dangerous, because there's no fucking excuse. It doesn't matter if they were drunk or high or stressed out or whatever the fucking excuse was. there's
You did
no
not get in
excuse.
the way of the cabinet. You did not get in the way of the
Right.
wall. You did
You
not
did
get in the
not,
way of anything. It was meant for you.
yeah. So there's no fucking excuse, and we will make excuses to take them back sometimes too. And you know, but the people that were the most supportive of me, that I will thank the universe for every day, were the ones that didn't fucking question why I kept taking him back. They were the ones that didn't blame me for what ended up ultimately happening, that they all saw fucking coming, you know, because they're on the outside looking in going, my God, she's in it. The friends and my family wasn't really aware of what happened because I wasn't letting them know. But the couple people that saw and knew what were happening and were the best supports were the people that weren't blaming me and were understanding and supportive of whatever decision I was making, even if they knew that it wasn't the right decision, but they didn't ever leave my side, you know? So for people who haven't gone through anything like this, if you know somebody who is, and given the stats, it sounds like you probably fucking do. If you know somebody who is, just be supportive of them and let them know that you're not going anywhere no matter what happens, because
Yeah.
they need
Yeah.
you.
And
Like, we need you. You are part of our fucking safety plan, our exit plan in the end. Like, you are what saves us in the end. So don't go blaming. And yeah, I know it's frustrating to watch people go through this when you don't understand it. And it's heartbreaking. I used to volunteer at a domestic violence shelter in college. So the frustration level, I understand when you haven't been through it, because you're like, my fucking God, let me just get this person out of this situation.
But we need to do better with shelters as well.
Yeah, we need to do better with shelters as well. I loved the shelter. Shout out to Safe House Denver. They do amazing fucking work for the community and for victims. And I volunteered on their crisis line, so I answered calls and connected them to the emergency shelter. So women that were in serious fucking danger. And so I always hated fucking domestic violence. It was like my least favorite fucking thing to watch people go through, and then to go through it myself was even more awful. But learning to be emotionally supportive of people who are going through this is really important, and not getting as frustrating and anger inducing as it can be. You gotta hang in there with them, because relationships are complicated as it is, and you add this layer of mind fuckery on top of it, and it's tragic.
We do have to start wrapping it up. Ashley, any last wrap up?
yeah, I want to bring attention to one really critical thing that Heather said, that a lot of people don't understand, and I'm gonna get emotional. Is that a lot of times, yeah, I'm having a hard time. A lot of times what people don't realize is, why don't you leave? And Heather said something that, like, I almost lost my ability to maintain composure, is that in many cases it's safer to stay.
Yeah.
Which a lot of people don't understand, because no matter how much hell you're going through physically with your abuser, and no matter what they're doing to you physically, a lot of us know that at least they're not killing me, that, it's just a black eye, or it's just, I remember a huge chunk of my hair being pulled out of my head, and I had a bald spot the size of a small baseball. But at least that was just hair, and it'll grow back, and at least I'm still alive. And at least my family's still alive. And if I leave, I know I'll end up dead, and someone I love could end up dead in the process. And so we almost make a knowful and willing sacrifice of our lives. And when I say our lives, I'm saying our ability to be free individuals with the right to choose. We choose imprisonment in order to protect other people around us because that's what's been conditioned. So if you're in that situation and you feel like it's safer for me to stay than it is for me to leave because they're going to chase me for the rest of my life or they're going to come after my kids. There have been times I've been afraid that if he's so desperate, he's just going to kill all of us. People don't understand that fear. And there is no fear like that fear. And so if you're in that situation, I understand that. And there is nothing that anyone can say to make that fear go away. There is nothing that anyone can do or say. And like anyone that's listening and feels that way, I understand and you're not alone. Because I know that fear and there's nothing that will make it better. And there's no kind of consolation or comfort that I can bring anyone because I know that fear and I still feel that fear today, which is why I had the emotions that I had in that video this weekend because, oh, Jesus Christ, if he finds us, I'm dead, and when people say, I know it's going to get better, he'll stop, he's not going to do anything, shut the fuck up. That's all I have to say to people is shut the fuck up unless you know. You can't say to someone it's going to get better when every 9 seconds a woman is being beaten by her romantic partner.
Fucking A.
On that note, I do want to say this is the number for the National Domestic Violence Hotline. Right now, they're experiencing, I cannot even believe this, an unusually high call volume, which is just, but you can call 1-800-799-7233. Again, 1-800-799-SAFE. You can also text START, the word START, START, to 88788. Now, if you are really seriously having a hard time getting through, there's also the National Crisis Line of 988. Call that as well if you cannot get through. If you use the domestic violence website, it is secure, it is private. You have to check on something, click on something to get to the site that says, it's almost like it's the opposite of using cookies. They are untraceable. So that way you can use it without fear of someone going through your computer or your phone and seeing that you have done it. So I'm going to give that number again, 1-800-799-7233. I know when I did domestic violence assessments, I would call that number, talk to them, and then hand the phone to the person. I couldn't even know what was being said. I didn't know what arrangements were being made. I didn't know where they were picking them up. It's all done in secrecy, in privacy. So you can also chat on the website or on your phone. You can text, you can chat, you can call. And if you cannot get through, then dial 988, the crisis hotline. So on that note, we are going to continue this conversation because next week we're going to be talking about histrionic personality disorder and narcissistic personality disorder. So stay tuned for our Halloween episode. Thank you guys.
Thank you. Cheers.
Bye.